Glitch decided to do something, and I'm legally obligated to talk about it now. I analyzed the entire video scene by scene, and compared it to the main series, and in about 20 minutes or so, I will summarize the video, give you some theories, and speculate on how it changes or is meant to change the main series. We will also come upon a speculation so extreme that I genuinely do not think anyone is going to actually believe it, which is fine since that's all my videos anyways. Let's begin. First, the full analysis. This will mostly repeat what happened in the episode and go over surface things, as well as setting up for the last two sections. First, there is a glitch intro. Fun fact, the glitch intro actually scales in complexity and coloration with the ego of the team. And by the way, this one unironically almost gave me a migraine. In fact, the next day I did have a migraine. That's today, by the way. I'm having a migraine right now. Next, we begin with the J.C. Jensen broadcast, where serial designation J is teaching us what a team is. I'm going to assume you already know the main series, and know who J is. If you don't, I suggest you watch that video first. It's in the description. I'll note this video is done in the same style as a disposal video from episode 5, implying it was actually made by J.C. Jensen, despite recurring events around episode 1. This timeline issue we will question. I'll also show just a 1-minute segment, because it is straight exposition, and I'd rather do that than actually have to put effort into this video.
A team is like a family. If the family had one clearly superior member, and my team maintains industry-leading metrics quarter after quarter, how do I do it? Well, that answer falls on one simple question. How was I born? I had but simple thoughts when I first came online. Goo goo gaga, me hungry, what strategies can we implement to leverage scalable impact? Stuff like that.
Hey, Jay! Totally fine, but hypothetically, if a random tummy were hurting, where might that tummy's owner find the tummy gummies? Copy that. I will just take the pain.
V, what does a standard workday look like for my team?
Tearing open skulls and slurping what's inside like a juice box.
Employee of the month, right here.
Oh, and by the way, welcome anyone who's new to Murder Drones. Note this video will have ultra-violence gore, something one step from ver. We will talk about genocides, indoctrination, natural selection, and intense propaganda as if it's today's weather. I will make repeated references to an unspecified political group during the Second World War. We will go into the concept of a soul, vaguely, bully a large set of inanimate objects, and make repeated jokes about a random guy who is the only reason this video is here. If anyone has any issues with those, I suggest you forget Murder Drones existed. Anyways, nothing about that section is actually lore-breaking other than the timeline that I already mentioned. So I'll assume you saw the video and know what happened. Jay also explains how the doors that Khan made in his outpost are annoyingly not letting them attack the colony. This is actually a topic that's already in question, both because of the fact that there are obviously more ways to get into the colony that we see in episode 1 and episode 2, but also this colony specifically seems to have significance to them, something that we will not really have explained. Also, there are some more shenanigans I will skip, and we see this scene.
Hi, Santa's busy and...
Terrible idea.
Horrendous idea. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, what if we pretend we left the planet? Launch the pod into orbit, wait for the workers to think we're gone, and then... We've just gotta fix the pod and...
No! We might, break a crucial thing. And then what? No way home. Meeting adjourned due to gas leak.
I want you to know Jay is putting all their lives in danger here, because it will be a major thing when we begin explaining why disassembly drones don't have souls. That is mostly a joke. Now, Jay doesn't want the shuttle to leave. Why is this? The first thought is that Jay wants to use it to get home, but considering their home, that's probably not it. We don't know a lot about the pod other than that N was originally the captain of it before J, and that J would go back to fix it later on. Again, keep this in mind for later. J would also bring us to her office where we see a red phone that needs a cord to work and yet will connect to another planet, and this room, which is presumably the murder soundproof room where you can torture others without anyone outside the room realizing it. If you're wondering why I would guess that, this is not the first time I've seen this. Yeah, my channel's very fun. Jay explains how emotions can get the better of you, which is why later drone hives would be created without a soul. Surprisingly, we will not come back to this point. Jay also says they don't work for J.C. Jensen, while, I think this counts as drunk. Hey, quick little, question. Why is the video by them then? If J.C. Jensen doesn't exist, why would they need to make J.C. Jensen videos and not just podcasts of Sin or something? Also, doesn't V know? Why would you need to hide the secret from V? Because V is implied to know about, like, all this different stuff multiple separate times in every single episode. So why exactly does J need to hide it from V? Did the showrunners even think about this? Probably not. Sin calls serial designation J, and asks her for the quote deeds. Jay explains how they have been committing genocide as effectively as possible, and afterwards, Jay asks very annoyed if they should have a follow-up. Sin says to do it in person. The thought of this is so terrifying to Jay that she would attempt to hang up. Sin immediately detects the anxiety through the device, something that yet again brings the Solve lure closer to the Star Wars lure. Something that is very beneficial to my shenanigans, as we will find out. Jay has a psychotic meltdown, and does the real-life equivalent of grabbing the skull of a person that she killed during a political rally, and then coddles it. Something that we will yet again tie into the rest of all the shenanigans. Also, if you notice my voice is weird, I have a migraine, I'm trying to eat a popsicle, and I have apraxia. One of those three is more important than the others, although I won't say which. Wow, what a coincidence that all of the fan videos suddenly stopped explaining why N is actually nice and killed for survival, and now are just promoting the fact that he's a murder drone. Murder drones really is just the Twilight Saga of YouTube, isn't it? Jay stares at someone she presumably ate earlier off screen, as Jay decides that this is the right time to grow conscious. V stops her and gives her a branded pen to fix the issue. According to the timeline, this should be the same pen from episode 1. Jay then talks about a choice that will change how teams move forward, and mentions the only thing that matters is that the team chooses together. This choice is the main thing we will be speculating on. We also see Uzi. Also about the merchandise, I will make you note that black is the base color rather than worker drone white, a question that I will not be bringing up. Now, before we actually get to theorizing and speculation, let's check out the background of the video, specifically my view while and after it came out. No, this isn't going to be 90% of the video. I'm not one of those, you have to know this in order to know this YouTubers. Or at least not here. At the time of this video coming out, or I should say before then, we were expecting some form of a season 2, the community in general. I personally was making edits to a script about the subject, and bullying an unspecified character when I learned about it from someone. For context, I don't have notifications for YouTube turned on, so if this person didn't @ me on Discord, I probably still wouldn't know. I wonder who that person was. The irony is not lost on me. By the way, he watches my videos, so I'm probably gonna hear about this in Discord later. Basically, people are looking at different things, like a strange pattern between some of the advertisements and some YouTube shenanigans, as well as some stuff on Twitter that I refuse to talk about. I personally was noticing what seemed to be better rendering on some of the animations. I'm showing it on screen in comparison to what episode 8 looks like. It is noticeable. and it's even different from Fight Till I'm Good Enough. There also I also personally mentioned how Murder Drones is the biggest glitch project, so if anything would get a season 2, it would be as well as explaining how these kinds of businesses operate. In the groups I could find, there was a general consensus that something was coming. And I'm showing a poll on screen where most people guessed it was an advertisement. Some other people were saying that Zanimation and V's voice actor were talking. I assume it was on Twitter because Then when this image, which obviously teased something, came out, theories began flying. Now what was the pattern between those videos? Some important context to this video. I have another video analyzing and theorizing on that Fight Till I'm Good Enough video that came out a while ago. My video managed to not come out that long ago though. In that video, I gave one big theory where Sin is trying to break free of Uzi and use the zombies as a diversion. Something around that. This video from the outside looks similar. In reality, here is a difference. That video was a large analysis coming together into one theory. This video is analysis turning into multiple theories, which will then turn into one big speculation, and that speculation I will also explain I got from a whole different source. I also have on screen the definitions of analysis, theorism, speculation, and speculative science, because I am going to use those words a lot, and it'll probably make sense to put them up since I'm too lazy to actually talk about them. Oh, I just realized that I just found out that I spent about 30 minutes setting up a recording system just for me to not plug it in. And I do not have the time to redo it, so, great. Also, another thing, this video, if you haven't noticed, is more focused on the lore, plot, and magic system as a whole, rather than having an emphasis on N, V, and J themselves, as well as how it affects the main series. I'm lazy, so I'll reuse a scene from my own video. If you don't know, N is one of the two main characters, but let's be honest, N is basically a side character. If we follow them, we'd see N getting approved by Khan and Nuri, then we watch as he gets the approval from the other students. The only outlier to this is something that is closer to a clip farm or clout chasing than anything else. This pattern appears to be kept in the background. Here we see N's past. You know, when he helped commit genocide. Average backstory in this YouTube channel at this point. Also, if you hear snoring in the background, that is my dog. This pattern does seem off considering it would either be leading to something bigger, or they themselves would be a mini-series in a way. They being the advertisements. Other than that, there is nothing really to analyze. During episode 1, Jay would say that slaughtering Uzi's colony would easily put them to first for most kills. Despite this, both the main series and the video would show serial designations J, V, and N killing workers with no apparent issues with getting them. It's not clear whether they are actually having struggles or not, because you'd assume this colony of about 100 workers wouldn't make too much of a note when they're heavily implied to be able to find them very easily. This math doesn't work, but I honestly doubt the showrunners were even thinking about this. Next, J.C. Jensen just doesn't exist. The humans who ran it died, more specifically they were eaten, and Jay says they don't work for J.C. Jensen, yet this video is made by J.C. Jensen, or at least in their style. So why? Why would the disassembly drones, who obviously are fine with Sin, and wouldn't care if they worked for her, need to be tricked? In another video coming up, I talk about how disassembly drones are definitively evil. This is based on the fact that they have to have a source for oil, for younger workers like Uzi and Doll to be filled with oil as well. Something that we see repeatedly. This implies that there is another source that in theory disassembly drones who don't want to commit a massacre could go to in order to get oil. Also, I explained how machinery heats stuff up, so the oil from the workers is actually less efficient. This means the only reason you'd attack workers is literally just because you value their life as less than a nice drink. And even if it was for survival, which like I just said it is not, but if you do not believe me, and it is 100% for survival, disassembly drones still value 3 workers' lives as less than 1 day night cycle of theirs. A math equation that only works with very low inherent value for life, and just value for life in general. Also, scientific psychopathy would help, though I really don't think I need to explain why I think they all have that. If your workers are this insane, why do they need to be tricked in the first place? The answer to this is that the disassembly drones still 100% think they're working for JC Jensen, and only some leaders know the truth. This is already known, so it's not the theory, because this is the main piece of info that will become the theory later on. That will become the speculation later on. The next question we'll make into a theory: why does Jay not want the shuttle to leave? Why does a broken shuttle have such importance? Now, let's think. What does a shuttle do? Well, is it a safety precaution? Safety is the first level of things you want. I can't remember what the pyramid is called, but safety is the first one. It's on screen. Now, why would Jay need a shuttle? To escape the planet. Why would they need to escape the planet? The disassembly drones are clearly winning. It's not like they're going to need to escape because there's a drone rebellion that's killing all of them. And Sin doesn't pose them any threat, as well as the solvers. Right? Why does Sin talking have such bad connotations as well? And what does Sin mean when she says it has been a while? What has happened to the others that hasn't been happening to this group specifically? What would Sin do separated from the other solvers that terrifies them so much? And what have we seen her do? Also, what is this question that all teams have, and are these 3 things connected? Finally, the last question: why would Jay think she's picking the wrong side? Why does Jay pick up a literal head? Well, let's answer all these questions at once. Now that we're in this section, I'm going to give you a quick little story. This will make sense in a second. But on screen, I'm going to have the different questions, and I want you to watch and figure out when each one of them gets answered. Disassembly drones are solvers or wyverns with the main null base. They replace the solver abilities with more conventional capabilities, both to make them more effective against a conventional enemy, and to lower their cost to the solver itself. They are known to consume different materials, and then their weaponry will use said materials, for instance with rockets that constantly have to be replaced. Due to this separation from the solver hive, they exhibit a significant amount of cognitive capabilities, which essentially just translates to finding more creative ways of killing and torturing, as you do. Their natural selection system is the most extreme. Disassembly drones are consumed after an unknown time period that seems almost random, and then are refabricated, gaining the information from previous attempts. If the solver decides, they get skills they used to have. This could be skills with a knife or spinning around a sword or something, but they can also get skills from other disassembly drones or solvers, though this is believed to cost a large amount of energy, as we almost never see it happen. Certain disassembly drones have been friendlier than others, and even friendly to those outside the main solver group. These outcasts are ones who refuse to eat workers or humans, and were hunted by both their colleagues and by the solvers, before their backups are wiped out from the database, naturally leading to favoritism of disassembly drones with more violence and efficiency. Intercepting some outcasts, we would find they contain morals closer to normal workers or even at the human level. Now this section requires its own exposition. Note that everything from this point on has been heavily simplified or translated into something more easily understandable. Now, disassembly drones are one of the main series I speculate on. Basically, I'll try as far as I can to explain the lore of a series without adding stuff on. Then I'll merge it with another lore and see what I end up coming up with. I'll purposely do this with similar series or projects, knowing that they will statistically have one central part that is similar. Maybe they're similar franchises, or they will just have similar cliches. This system has worked before, and is why I commonly compare murder drones to stuff like Star Wars, Shandzii, and Alan Becker. The similarities are very clear, which you're seeing on screen. The exact process is on screen, again heavily simplified, but from that I have my main speculative science explanation for murder drones. I won't go into it here because it is hilariously complicated and reads out like a scientific research paper. This explanation is one of 3 that I go off of, and was made about last year, although it would only be fully canonized later on into a separate group of murder drones. For context, I've split up the different murder drones and fan projects into 3 generations, just based on how they function. This disassembly drone explanation is what I just read. Again, heavily simplified, and specifically chosen, and specifically on stuff relevant to the video. This, though it 100% sounds like it could have been made for the video, or after the video, was actually made beforehand. In fact, I made that before Fight Till I'm Good Enough came out. It was more or less just a fun little theory on the disassembly drones. That eventually I decided, you know what, this makes sense. Rather than just telling you, I'ma go over how I end up coming up to this. The cloning concept was based on the infographic show, I Survived an Alien Invasion. The idea of them being killed was based on how Sin casually decided to eat N after he was no longer useful. The outcast system itself also was a way for me to keep the disassembly drones evil. That way I could still refer to them as evil, even though I would 100% be claiming that they were genetically modified, genetically enhanced, genetically engineered, psychologically enhanced, psychologically engineered, and domesticated, specifically for being evil. Despite all of that, I still wanted them to be evil. This was also decided based on the assumption that disassembly drones would be seen as less valuable than the solvers, based on a hierarchy of who is closer to the solver code itself. I didn't expect this story to actually be useful in a video. It was more or less going to stay in the background until I pulled it out later on, but it ended up being. I'm not going to say it's because I'm smart or because my system worked, because honestly, I'm not 100% sure about that. I'd rather just say that I came up with 800 separate theories, and it's a coincidence that one of them just so happened to be correct, and it was one of the ones that I already chose. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, while I'm talking about stuff more about me, originally there was actually going to be a mini-series on my channel, talking about the whole disassembly drone speculative science lure that I made. This explains stuff from how Jay ended up being the leader, to this entire domestication process. That set of videos would end up being scrapped until a later date, and instead they would be replaced with a set of videos coming out. In other words, there was actually a time when characters like V and Ice were actually acted as if they were conscious beings, and not animate and inanimate objects like I refer to her and it now. Also, before we go, I should mention, there are still 100% plot holes that I haven't even tried explaining yet. I may come back to them later. Jay keeping secrets from V is one of the obvious ones, and V being a psychopath, and then suddenly switching is another. I could not think of any logical explanation, but I'm not going to pretend like I fixed every single problem with a single speculation, because I 100% didn't. This video may be copyright struck by King Ghalux for all the jokes I've made on his series. I can never really know, since I haven't talked to him about it yet, and I thought it would be funny if I didn't, so subscribe before this video gets taken down. I'm of course joking about this. Ghalux would probably just ice me out for a few months after this. Anyhow, in a month or two, the mentioned videos will be coming out, But if you like this video, you should like them since some of them are very similar to this one. Subscribe to see them since, statistically, YouTube will not be showing you them. Other than that, goodbye and God bless.